Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to tackle today the painful subject of the recent cyber attacks. I'm saying painful because there's so many unknowns about what happened. We know that this is one of the most comprehensive, most massive attacks since people are keeping track of it. One of the first ones was in the 1990s when the Pentagon was attacked by the Russians, the same Russians that were our friends in the 90s. Then came the Chinese attacks. The Chinese managed to get hold of the files of the US civil servants, and we're talking about millions of civil servants with all their data and their fingerprints, something that is extremely important in future espionage and in the ability of China to track what America is doing, what American civil servants are doing. Now, this is dangerous because the open sources are telling us that the US Department of Energy, Department of Homeland Security, and the major companies were involved. What happened was that the supply chain of our companies was compromised. There was one particular piece of software that 18,000 companies are using was involved in this, and the access that the Russians gained to the US nuclear reactors, possibly to our nuclear weapons stockpile, this is unprecedented. The good news that so far we don't think they tried to sabotage or manipulate these very important parts of our defense infrastructure or of our civilian infrastructure. However, this is very dangerous even if when they penetrated, they just collected information. Why? Because in order to create a disruption, in order to create an active operation that would get control of our nuclear weapons or of our civilian reactors, they need to know a lot of data, and that data is what they were gaining day in and day out, apparently since April. What does it mean? It means that while the nation was involved in fighting COVID, the Russians, the hackers, the espionage agents and intelligence officers were busy penetrating our system and getting hold of all this massive data. And in the future, when they are able to process this data with artificial intelligence, with the software they use to crack the encryption, they can get to a point where, God forbid, a scenario in which we are on the verge of attack and our nuclear weapons are paralyzed, we cannot launch. And I must add, because some of our nuclear weapons are so antiquated, the software that is used to operate these systems is pretty darn old and may not have the layers of protection necessary to keep these systems secure. What else does it mean? It means that we, the taxpayers, spent tens of billions of dollars trying to build the safety systems to protect our cyberspace. We have a cyber command with all the bells and whistles, with all the toys. We have General Nakasone, the head of the National Security Agency. And unfortunately, at this point, we did not manage to protect our cyber realm. I'm not going to be dramatic. I'm not going to tell you that this is the cyber Pearl Harbor we were warned about many years ago. Maybe 10 years ago, I already heard that we one day may face multiple attacks in which our grid freezes, our banking system freezes, our first responders are incapacitated, in the worst case scenario, our military is not capable of doing their job. This would be, if it ever happens, this would be an attack on the American homeland that some of the senators today are talking about, that we are coming close to that. And it's happening around the time when the nation is vulnerable with COVID and during the election season. We have an outgoing president that so far was mum. We have the incoming president that said something general about how he will stand up to those who did the dastardly deed. And I think any president, it is his job or her job to protect the nation, to protect our cyber space, to make it impossible for the enemy, even if the enemy has the capacity to harm us, to think twice and three times before they do such harm and not to do it. What does that mean? It means that for this attack, there should be a countervailing response, the response against the value targets that the enemy protects, that the enemy or the adversary values the most. What is this going to be, and when the response is going to come? This is beyond my pay grade to decide, but there are many high-level officers and politicians whose job it is to protect our nation and to respond in such a way that those who did it will think twice and three times and will not attempt what I described before, a massive attack to bring our nation on the knees. May God help us all. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to get more content like this.